Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to express congratulations to you on being elected the 12th Speaker of this Honorable House. I thank you, and I hope that you will be fair and impartial in all your rulings. I have every belief that it can only be done in all fairness. Honorable members, I'm honored and consider it a great opportunity to be elected a freshman member of this Parliament of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. I also want to congratulate my colleagues on this side of the House who have taken up this bold step. I also wish to express best wishes to Ms. Sarah Brown, who is my sister-in-law. In this House, Ms. Brown, we represent the interests of Guyanese people, more especially the people of the Borima-Waini region. So at home, we are family. Here, we must fight. And fight we will do. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, again, before I commence my presentation on Budget 2020, on behalf of the grouping of APNU+AFC Coalition, Borima-Waini region, I wish to thank all our hardworking public servants, including the ordinary men and women who work tremendously despite the many challenges posed by the PUP-controlled Regional Democratic Council of the Borima-Waini region. Despite the unsupportive and callous behavior of the regional officials, the Borima-Waini region has witnessed major transformational development under the previous administration. I wish to, but cannot say that this budget represents a continuation of such great hinterland development. Mr. Speaker, my honorable members of the other side, the government side, are always quick to comment that indigenous peoples' development became a reality under the PPC government and that they love poor people. Well, I believe that after being there for 23 long years, you had no other choice but to start the development. But the question is, was the development enough in 23 years? Mr. Speaker, the development in Amerindian communities over the last 5 years could be equivalent to that 23 years in their government. It is paramount and an indication of greater focus on hinterland development by the APNU+AFC administration. Moreover, the decentralization of many social services is a testimony of a better life for all Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, for example, the establishment of a regional office for the Guyana Revenue Authority in Maburuma, Central Commanding Center for the Guyana Police Force, the construction of a first ever fire station, an environmentally friendly park, a spanking new concrete bridge in Maruka, an upgraded airstrip, and the completion of the district hospital at Port Kaituma, and the completion of the road from Wangna to Yarakita are just a few highlights of the APNU+AFC administration. Education delivery. Mr. Speaker, although stated in Guyana's government education policy is to provide indigenous children with the same educational opportunities offered to students all across Guyana, especially the coastland, as the rest of the population. This access, I must say, is not equitably distributed. I wish to remind the Honorable Minister of Education that education cannot be equally distributed. It must be equitably distributed because you are putting us in the hinterland communities at a disadvantage. So in your policy decision making, ensure that you consider that. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the Armenian communities, government initiatives Again, to provide hot meals, uniforms, free transportation to school for rural students exists only in theory until the APNUFC administration took office in 2015. And they made it a reality. It has been indicated that oftentimes the infrastructure to fulfill these initiatives and disperse the aid, as well as information about the opportunities available, does not even reach many hinterland communities. I wish to beg that the Honorable Minister of Education, we demand an equitable, again, I repeat, we demand an equitable distribution of education across Guyana. A few questions must be considered when implementing projects. What are the implementation details of your project? Are there any mechanisms to ensure that students benefit from such projects? And I want to touch a little bit on the $15,000 cash grant proposed. Mr. Speaker, when the $10,000 cash grant was distributed just before the elections in 2015, I think it was, it can only be considered as a political stratagem. It is, and it was, a political contrivance just to gain attraction. And attraction they did, but it did not serve them well in 2015. Again, Mr. Speaker, when that money was distributed, you wonder if it was heritage time, because the parents, after collecting the money, were drunk in Kumaka at the market center, and I believe that not one book or pen or pencil was purchased with that money for the students. That is my question. What are your mechanisms to ensure that the students benefit? I'm not saying it is a bad project. I'm saying rethink your mechanism. Mr. Speaker, when I was sitting at General Council of the Guyana Teachers Union, the then minister, now again returning Minister of Education, would attend our meetings. And when we deliberate for increase in teachers' salaries, her comments, and I quote, "If you don't like the job, leave the job." Mr. Speaker, that is very disrespectful to the educated people of this nation who deserves every bit of increase in their salaries. Suppose we have taken your advice and walk out of the teaching profession. Who are you put there to teach the nation's children? Mr. Speaker, the PPC has made exorbitant and luxurious promises to our indigenous brothers and sisters. I want to remind my fellow indigenous brothers and sisters that we must hold the government responsible and demand what was promised to us. Where is the $50,000 cash grant that you promised? The budget is just, again I repeat, a stratagem which is designed to attract attention. Mr. Speaker, another example, the Santa Rosa Secondary School in Maruka has students who travel for miles to get to school. For example, Paraburi, 6 miles. Wallaba, 10 miles. Kamwata, 7 miles. These students spend $2,500 per week to get to school. Moreover, from my interaction with teachers, more than 50% of these students do not have lunch on a daily basis. Therefore, the establishment of a feeding program or an expansion of the allocation for the dormitory kitchen to cater for these students would have been by far a greater initiative of this government other than a $15,000 one-time cash granting. Mr. Speaker, I call on the government of Guyana to implement strategies that will ensure children stay in schools. Over the last 5 years, Guyana has risen to its rightful place as the best performing country in CSEC. And for that, Mr. Speaker, I must congratulate my honorable member, Nicholas Henry. Mr. Speaker, health services. Mr. Speaker, most indigenous communities rely on quick and shallow home dug ponds for their water supply. Communities close to mining areas, largely bauxite and gold, are in danger of their water being contaminated, and many don't have access to safe, potable water. There are many many cases of respiratory infections, waterborne diseases, skin rashes in all hinterland areas. Arguably due to resource extraction industry activity, I call on the relevant responsible ministers to think of their strategies to better the life of indigenous brothers and sisters, rather than focusing only on the rich who goes there to exploit our land. Mr. Speaker, I call on the government to continue to upgrade what the APNU+AFC government has left in Region 1, more especially Mabruma. Upgrade the Mabruma Regional Hospital so that you will decrease the high rate of emergency medevac to Georgetown. This upgradement initiated by the APNU+AFC government must continue, and any caring government who have all desires for a good life for all will continue any good project. And so, you must continue. Additionally, the people of Imbatero, that is where I'm from, the only community closest to the Venezuelan border. And I'm sure, if you ask, where is Imbatero located? Are you aware? Do you know where it is? Because hardly has anybody visited that community. For too long, they have been asking for a health center. They have to travel 20 miles by canoe boat paddling to Mabruma to get to a hospital. Mr. Speaker, I call on the Minister of Health to ensure that these people's wishes become a reality. Mr. Speaker, agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I also want to tell the people in the government, the honorable members of the government, I heard a comment there. You must understand that Region 1 had 28% increase in vote for the coalition government, the greatest increase in all the regions. So that speaks for itself. And if you don't look carefully for the people of Region 1 and Region 9, which had 26% increase, you will be losing those two hinterland regions. You may not lose it now, but in time to come, you will. Mr. Speaker, the APNU+AFC has given titles to indigenous people for land totaling 3,000 square miles or 3.5% of Guyana's total land space. While the PP in 23 years, under 5 presidents, gave 2,800 square miles, which is equivalent to 3.4 of Guyana's land. Mr. Speaker, what is the comparison? Between 2016 and 2019, the APNU+AFC has issued also in grants to indigenous communities across Guyana the sum of $935 million, while the PP in their stay in 23 years was just above that. Mr. Speaker, this budget
Honorable member, before you talk about more grants, the Assembly has to give you a grant of time to continue and conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I do ask that the honorable member be given 5 minutes to conclude his presentation.
Thank you very much, honorable member. Honorable member, you may continue to the conclusion in 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Public Works. The information and communication technology has always been an integral part of the APNUFC vast initiative for development in hinterland communities. Every government buildings and offices was equipped with Wi-Fi connecting the once lost world under the PPC. It was only 3 weeks ago when the RDC was able to virtually present the budget proposal to the Director of Budget. I want to remind the RDC of Borima Wine region that such initiative must be applauded and continued. It is sad that Budget 2020 lacked technological vision, especially in hinterland communities such as those in the Borima Wine region. Sadly, it is in a time when a pandemic has forced the world to go virtual. Mr. Speaker, Wi-Fi must and should be installed at all schools across Region 1. Mr. Speaker, for decades, the people of Morocco begged the PP government for a new bridge. It was only realized a few years ago. Mr. Speaker, the previous administration has lifted the bar for hinterland development, and now it is a competition for this new PP government. The PP, well known for the substandard work done across hinterland regions because of the lack of supervision over such projects, which they had to return from time to time. For example, in Maburuma, the dark roads. I want to pause a little bit to give an example. The then minister, the Honorable Mr. Ben, he's not here today. On one of his visits to Maburuma, was examining the road. Mr. Speaker, this is the road. It is slush, real slush. I was there, and the Honorable Minister, while walking, fell. I hope that he remembers that clearly. Mr. Speaker, under the APNU+AFC government, this is the photo. This is the photo. This is Kamaka. Mr. Speaker, this one is Port Kaituma Road. Students are traveling to the Port Kaituma Secondary School. Mr. Speaker, this is Port Kaituma Road. This is Port Kaituma Road now. Mr. Speaker, this is the smoothest road Region 1 had, the Barabina Road. It is the smoothest because it is water. Mr. Speaker, this is now the Barabina Road. Mr. Speaker, if I have to show enough evidence, it will not permit me enough time. Mr. Speaker, I'd like in closing to say that I want to call on my friend, the Honorable Pauline Sukai, now Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs. Please, Minister, urgently implement a national consultation on this issue of Amerindian versus Indigenous. It must not be your only one-man decision. Let the people speak. This is a democratic society. And this national consultation will determine the solution to this issue. Mr. Speaker, I wish to close by saying, when bad men combine, the good must associate, else they will fall one by one and unpitied sacrifice in a contemptible struggle. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to stand firm and associate ourselves against anyone that does not have the interest at heart of indigenous people's development. Mr. Speaker, I want to call on, again, my good friend, Mr. Colin Cole, during one of his visits recently, only last month, the people of Korea could call last night to say 3 weeks later, they are still without water, as you promised the next Thursday they will have it fixed. I just want to ensure that I pass this message on to you. And so they said, the PEP always said they are committed. But if you take 3 weeks to be committed for a 2-day project, then that's not nice. And I so will advise you, stick to your commitment the next time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.